following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zig Zag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, across the moat from Oakland, in the northern part of what I consider to be at least tied for the third best state in the country. New York being first, we were all, my guests and I, Marty Rose and Robert Cole, were all New Yorkers originally. I moved to California. They moved to Florida. We could talk about the quality of life in the different states, but it's so much different than when we moved, me years ago, you guys years ago, and recently. Robert, you've been down there a long time.
Yes.
Marty, just, what, 3 years?
4 years, starting fifth year now.
Wow.
I was in Jacksonville for 4 years. Now I'm in celebration since last December.
Okay. Let's start with you, Robert. How have things changed in Florida since you moved in in the 80s? Am I correct?
Yeah, we moved down here in the summer of '87, and
okay.
Changed a lot. I mean, when we first came down here, you could actually go down some of the highways and see the beach all along, and now you can't even see the beach because of all the high-rises and condos all along the beach roads, and you can't even, like I said, you can't even see the water, and it's gotten quite crowded.
How has it changed politically, if at all?
Florida, for almost the entire time I've been here, as far as national politics, has been a 50-50 state, always in play in the presidential races. Parts are very, very Democratic. Parts are very, very Republican. When I first moved down here, we had a Democratic governor, and then the last 25 years, almost 30 years, it's been a Republican governor.
Okay. Nothing more polarizing than Trump, am I correct?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, unbelievable. Unbelievable.
All right, Marty, you talk to that a little bit. It's an open discussion.
Well, I mean, up until last November, Florida had a Republican and a Democratic senator, one of each. And the Democrat that was defeated last November had served, over 40 years. He was a long time Democrat, and he ran against the Republican governor at the time, who ran against the Democratic senator, and he beat him. So now there are two Republican senators here, and of course the new governor, also a Republican, who was running against a black man who was the mayor of Tallahassee, and obviously the Tallahassee guy lost, and we got stuck with this the guy that we have now, who I don't know what to say about him. Seems to be lost, is the best I could put it.
Well,
that was a close race. The race for governor was a very close race with the guy from Tallahassee.
It was
senator and governor. Okay, they both went days after the elections. Governor Scott, who won the Senate, did it very, very narrowly. And Little Don, our governor,
Little Don.
And I call him that because he wasn't supposed to win the primary. And Trump came down here and really went to bat for him. And then he wasn't supposed to win the election, and Trump came down here and really went for him. And they have like a father-son relationship. You know, our governor went up to Washington and, you know, got to sit with Big Don, and they talked. And one thing I must say, and Marty will agree, is, you know, up until now, we haven't wanted for anything as far as, you know, PPP or any kind of medical supplies and drugs and stuff like that. I mean, Big Don made sure Little Don had everything he needed. So, you know, that was one plus of that. But, you know, the other day, and Marty probably saw this, the governor and Vice President Halfpence were down here in Tampa and telling us what a wonderful job Little Don was doing in Florida, and everything was hunky-dory and rosy. And then yesterday it was announced in the county that I live in, Pinellas County, that 6 of our hospitals are at maximum and are going to have to go into overflow. So.
Yeah, it's here too. Same thing here, very crowded.
Yeah.
A lot of cases.
Yeah, so now they have to go into what they call, they have a special name for it, but they can reconfigure the hospitals so they can take in a few more patients, but they never wanted to do that. You know, the hospitals were set up a certain way, and I know here in Pinellas, they now are stopping a lot of the surgery that they just started doing again, which wreaks havoc in
what they call elective surgery.
Right.
And it isn't life-saving at the moment, although it could be later on. If you
Correct.
don't have it at the moment. They kind of poo-poo that, but things aren't going to get better for a lot of these people putting off the surgery. They're going to get worse. And another thing they poo-poo, before I get to a post that you posted today about Mitch McConnell, Robert, I want to get to the fact that when one contracts the virus, COVID-19, it isn't just a matter of getting better or dying. It's dealing with the after effects of that could become chronic. And they're just beginning to realize it's not just the lungs that are affected. It's the heart, it's the kidneys, it's the liver, this, that, and the other thing. So it is my considered opinion that this thing has been underplayed for so long that even people like Mitch McConnell, Robert, take it, are.
Oh, they're coming around and they're going against Donald Trump. I mean, you know, Mitch McConnell is now saying you have to wear a mask. Okay, for months they've all been denying it, and they've all not been wearing masks. But I
even halfpence, and that's very good, by the way, especially for those out there that have an inkling of what the British system of money is. Halfpence is like a quarter or whatever. It's a coin, a halfpence. So that's very clever. Did you coin that, if you will excuse the pun?
I believe I have, but you know, Little Don is definitely mine, and I believe halfpence is also. But I've got to disagree with you, Ralph. Just last night, the president said that 99% of all people that catch the virus, it's perfectly harmless.
Yeah, I know. Just that you reminded me makes me feel so much better about our plight in life than that. everything's going to be okay, because 99.5%, that's pretty good. We're doing a great job. I think I attribute that great testing, great follow-up, and all that. One thing I want to say about hospital space, New York had the same problem, and the one good thing that Trump did was he brought in some ships and established a hospital. I don't know if they took away elective surgery.
Yes, they did.
Brought back elective surgery by having those ships. Of the 3.5, almost 4 years this guy's been in, that's about one of the only things I can think of where the federal government came to the rescue of the states. And I think they will do the same. Unfortunately, Trump looks like a hero when he does stuff like that. It's like the fireman, the pyromaniac who sets the fires and then puts them out and becomes the hero. Yeah.
Well, the scary thing, though, now is, okay, then he was engaged. Okay, then he was playing, wartime president, and he was the general in charge. So he was doing all this stuff. Now he's denying that there is even a problem, and that's what worries me, because is he even going to bother to, point out the fact that, Florida and Texas and Arizona need that help? That's the scary part. Back then,
you guys notwithstanding, you guys and Barn and a few others notwithstanding, are the residents of the state have the power to not go and have a party at the beach. It almost becomes the people's responsibility to stay alive and to play defense, because we're not going to get it from either the federal government, the state's government, even Newsom, who is a progressive governor. He opened this state a little too early, and he's having to go back on stuff and prepare everybody again that this could be much worse on the second wave than the first wave. So,
well, I still think we're in the first wave. I don't even think you have to worry about a second wave. We haven't gotten out of the first wave yet. But, okay, you have to have a plan, and that plan has to come from the top, okay? And this country has never had that. I have friends that live in Netherlands, Vietnam, Sweden, Brussels, okay, different places. They didn't go through these problems. Canada had some problems initially, but they got themselves back on track. And they had a plan, and part of that plan was wearing masks from the get-go, having a solid lockdown, okay, not a piecemeal lockdown like we've had, federally, but even in this state, as Marty will attest to. It's like, the Wild West in this state. One county wears masks, another county doesn't wear masks, another county says, well, maybe we should wear masks. And it's been like that throughout the 50 states. There's never been a plan.
No,
so theoretically, it will go from one hot spot to another. You clear it up in Florida, Arizona will break out, or North Carolina, South Carolina. And
what's happening now, Ralph, is it's the young people are not paying attention. The ones that were out on the 4th of July weekend, the ones that were out in all the protest marches and on Memorial Day weekend. You've seen the pictures on TV. Crowded pools, crowded beaches, crowded whatever, everywhere.
Bars open one-on-one in a bar. Can you imagine? Indoors, and with all this going on, is there a basic disregard for life? I'm kind of out of touch.
Look, I think it's just the age group. It's the age group, Ralph. We felt the same way when we were that age. You know, what's going to hurt us? Nothing, man. You know, we're young and strong. I think it's just a mindset. That's the way they feel until they get proven wrong. And unfortunately, a lot of them are going to get proven wrong in this case.
Yeah, well, the other thing, too, is, you know, a lot of the young people have been brought up to follow directions, okay? As long as there were things put in place, they were pretty much following it. I mean, you know, you look in New York. New York has a very young base, especially in New York City, okay? As soon as they lessened, you know, the hold a little bit, all of a sudden they were out partying in front of the bars and, you know, clogging up the streets and stuff like that. And, you know, that's why they had to, you know, crack back down. So you have to have some rules. People, for the most part, will follow the rules. But if you say, well, do what you think is best, forget it. There's no rule. Well, we're going to go out and do our thing. So.
Yeah, well, it can't, if the leadership doesn't know what to make as rules, because they have no idea, either that or they politicize it. And I think with Trump, everything is said, everything is calculated with his re-election in mind. So
yes.
Whatever we're getting has that filter on it. He wants to tell us the things as they are that will help him get reelected. And the rest of it is just a matter of what will we buy. Okay. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, you know, from day one, okay, he was looking to be reelected. From day one. I mean, he went on his victory tour, and his victory tour was nothing more than, you know, a campaign to get reelected this time. And
yeah, he had the most crowds in the history of presidential inaugurations. I remember that. It was just, I couldn't believe the amount. There must have been 70 people there.
Well, they were disguised as trees and blades of grass and leaves.
Right.
But,
and idiots.
Yeah. Yes, indeedy.
All right, let's segue a little bit into the situation with not just baseball, all sports. I think all sports, this is my opinion, and you guys can comment on it or run me into the ground. I think they ought to cancel it all till 2021. I think it's just not worth it. It bastardizes everything, and the risks of. When I read that Freeman of Atlanta, say what you want, I'm glad he's out of the division, this, that, and the other thing, superstar, a great player. What's going to be like without him? And why risk a Mike Trout's future career, life, shortening of life? Remember what we were talking about before, that if you get it, it doesn't necessarily kill you, but it certainly isn't going to make you live longer. It's certainly not going to make your endurance any better.
Yeah. There's already 8 guys who said they're not playing. Did you see that?
Right.
Yes.
8 major leaguers said,
and there'll be more.
Yeah, right. There will be more.
Yeah.
I'm sure of it.
And the Nationals and Astros, suspended their practices today, awaiting, testing. I guess they did, full team testing, and they're not going to go back on the field until they get those results back.
And the Yankees have a problem. Not only couldn't they come up with the pitching cage the other day for Tanaka, but that's another story. And I think that's a big one because the workouts were held without the pitching cage. You wouldn't have had that generally. And it was
to be fair, Ralph. Okay, he had the option of pitching with it. Okay, it was a simulated game. It wasn't batting practice. And,
okay.
It was a simulated game, and he had the option of having the L screen in front or not, and he opted not to. Okay, every other pitcher after him normally would have said no L screen. Well, they all used the L screen. So
after that,
yeah. So
I didn't realize it was a simulated game. That's what struck me.
It was.
Okay.
In fact, on my cable we get SNY, and not SNY, the Yes Network, and Yes Network was showing it live. I mean, I was watching it in real time when it happened, and it was a simulated game.
I don't know if it was the unions that made a big stink out of. It was Judge and a couple of other players made a big stink out of having the instance televised. Well, how could you run a TV station and announce the news, and if you have the footage, not run it? That it's not sensationalizing anything. I don't know. But,
I mean, the practice was being shown live. The Yankees are showing their practices live on their network, and a couple of the other teams are as well.
But the tape went viral.
Viral? Oh yeah. Well,
how could one expect it not to go viral?
Right.
But okay, where do we stand with MLB? Is there Marty? We always play the game of over under this, that, and the other thing. What do you think the chances are of a season, Marty?
I think if they start playing these a couple of these practice games, I think they're going to go through with it because they got the schedule set up for the least amount of travel, staying within your own division and the Eastern Division of the American League, which is good for travel, but it's not good for the Mets as far as competition because they got almost every game is a hard game, and the only crappy teams are Baltimore and Miami, and they got enough trouble with Miami anyway. But that's going to be tough. Now I think they're going to start. I'm getting that idea right now that they're going to start. At least MLB is going to start. And I also think that the NBA stuff is ridiculous. What they're planning, because
planning to play in one venue.
Why are they playing in the summertime? Why are they just can it until October for the regular next season? I don't understand why they're doing this. It makes no sense.
Revenue.
It's all TV money.
Yes.
Why would people even watch at this point? From July 30th all the way until October 13th. That's what they're planning. And then what are they going to do about next season? If this season's ending October 13th, they got seeding games, they got play-in games, they got playoffs, they got conference semifinals, conference finals, NBA finals. I mean, it's insane.
And you got to have a training camp to give the rookies, the new draft picks, a chance.
Yeah, sure.
I have a feeling that the seasons as we know it are no longer going to be. All the leagues are frightened right now of what October, November, December, January are going to bring. College football is actually thinking of going to a spring season. So I have a feeling that, if they're able to get their playoffs done in October, we won't see them again until maybe February or March.
Probably not.
So like I said, at least for the short term, I don't think the seasons as we knew them all these many years are going to still be the seasons.
Right. Brings me to another topic that turns my stomach. If there is games this year in baseball, and one happens to go to extra innings, Herbie Washington will be pinch running without a designated runner type thing, and the game will start off. The 10th will start off with a runner in scoring position. I talked about the possibility of that happening when they were experimenting with rule changes back then. And I said to myself, and talked about it on many podcast shows, that would be the last straw for me. That really bastardizes the game more than anything I can think of. Who's going to score the run? How's the run going to appear in the record books? Who's going to get the ribby? Is it guy gets a double with a man on second and the designated runner in there? Does he get the ribby? Is it a team ribby? Is it a half a ribby because the guy started on second? It just screws things up beyond belief. That is the one rule that through all of this I could see realigning. I could see making it all DH.
How does it count against the pitcher's record? That's the question.
Oh, exactly. ERA, saves, this, that, and the other, blown saves. It all gets thrown out the window. And if they go through this season, what's going to stop them from saying, this was kind of exciting with the 4 divisions like this. Let's do it again next year.
Well, I think you're going to have a shorter season. I think that's what we're going to see. We're no longer going to see a 162-game season. It may revert back to 154 or 150, but I think there's going to be a shorter season. The commissioner keeps seeming to want to get everything done, in October. So in order to do that, because, now a lot of times, a couple of series games are actually being played in November. So you're going to have a shorter season. So I think we're going to see that for sure. I don't think we're ever going to get away from the universal DH, even though they say that next year it'll go back to the way it was. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't either.
But, as far as this other thing, when I coached for many years, I took teams to tournaments, because you had time limits, and if you were tied at the end of the regulation time, they did what they called a Texas tiebreaker, which is what this is. And it was just in order to get the game over with so you could go to the next game, But to do it the way they're doing it here in the major leagues is totally ridiculous. I would have rather them play a 10th inning and then still tied, do it like they're doing in Korea, In Korea, they play a 10th inning. If they're still tied, it goes in the books as a tie. I would have rather have seen that.
Me too. Absolutely.
Go to a point system like the NHL? 2 for a win, 1 for a tie? Maybe.
Yeah, why not?
May go to that.
But you'd also have teams, doing things in that 10th inning, to avoid that, maybe actually bunting a guy over.
Right.
The thing that was brought up about this now is if the visiting team doesn't score, it's almost a definite that the home team's going to score because you're starting with the guy at second, you bunt him over to third, so now you have a guy on third with 1 out, and, that
2
run
shots
scores
getting him
over.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Now, of course, the visiting team will probably do the same thing. So, the one good thing out of that will be guys will have to learn how to bunt. But other than that, there's there's no plus.
Well, and also if you have two guys coming up that aren't bunters, that are you going to ask them to bunt and show their weakness? Is that good strategy? Or
you're going to have extra guys on the bench, right? I mean,
yes, yeah. They're gonna start with 30 for 2 weeks, 28 for 2 weeks, and then 26.
And you're going to have another 30 guys as a taxi squad, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. Will they be working out competitively, or will it all be intramural, so to speak?
Most of the teams are going to have their players at a nearby park. Like the Mets are probably going to have their guys at the Cyclones field. The Yankees are probably going to have their guys possibly in Staten Island, where their team was.
Right.
The Rays down here, the Rays are going to have their guys at Port Charlotte, their spring training base, which is, about an hour away. The Marlins are going to have their guys in their spring training base, which is like a mile away. Stuff like that. So,
but will they be playing other teams to keep sharp or whatever, or will it just be intramural workouts?
I believe it's just going to be intramural workouts, from what I've heard.
Okay.
Yeah, how often are they going to be able to change their rosters? You're saying you got 60 guys to play with. They're going to be a certain amount active and inactive. How often are they going to be able to make changes to this 30-man active roster?
Yeah, bringing guys up and down. That sort of thing.
Yeah. That's a good question, Marty. I need to try to find that out.
Yeah, because like your starting pitcher don't have to be active only on the day he's starting. They could have like a couple of these pinch runner guys ready for the 10th inning, that can just run and do nothing else.
Right.
That's akin to the way it used to be in September, when they can bring up
that's true.
12 pitchers in the bullpen, and Dusty Baker would use every one of them. So.
So did Joe Madden. But
anything on the bright side of all of this? Something always comes up good out of everything. In other words, the money changes hands. What do you like about what's happening? For me, I'll give you an example. For me, I see in the Bay Area an alleviation of an all-time high traffic problem that will probably never come back this way, because people are learning, not everybody, of course, can do this, but there are people that are learning that they can work from home and be productive, either through their computers or crafts.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Very true.
Yep.
So that may be a plus to it all. Any other things? Anything individually that you guys can think of that it'll be different, but not necessarily for the worse? Because we're going through. There's a bunch of depression. I talk to people. I've been getting out a little bit. Walking, not much. I'm going to stop doing that because there's always the schmucks out there that are walking around without a mask, and I don't want to deal with walking out into the street to go for a walk to avoid these people. I'm going to get back to my backyard obstacle course. For me, an obstacle course can be perfectly flat. Doesn't have to. When you get this old, just getting out of bed is an obstacle course.
This is true.
But I guess my point is that there's got to be some things good come out of this a tragic pandemic. You got 20,000 people being killed, 120,000. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Give me some positive, Robert.
Well, what you said, okay. One of the other things is that the air quality, okay, hasn't been this good in years and years and years. Even though
that's a good one.
Even though some people claim that there is no such thing as global warming and putting bad things in the air, it's been proven, just over these 4 months that the carbon dioxide amount in the air has lessened.
Right. Ozone layer closed up a little bit.
Right.
Even said that.
Yeah, but that's all science-y and shit.
Yeah, but it's still important.
I know.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry to bring a fax up,
I know, no. I was being facetious. I mean, if the White House had a briefing, that's exactly what they say. That's science.
I can hear Kayleigh McEnany right now saying that.
Exactly. That's who I was thinking of. No, the president didn't say that, did he?
Well, it's amazing.
Yeah, the ozone. Put that under the category of the ever shrinking ozone layer. So that's good.
But
Mert, anything that you see in society that will end up being an improvement?
In society itself.
Just along the lines of people not driving.
Well, I mean, they're not driving because what Robert said, everybody was working from home. But I could see a difference in the last, I would say, in the last about 3 weeks. It's not as bad as it was. It's not as bad as it was, but it's improving. It's the parks aren't open here. That's the big thing around Orlando.
Yeah.
The Disney World is planning to reopen. I think next week, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I believe they pushed that back.
Oh, did they? It was supposed to be July 11th.
Yeah, I believe they pushed that back.
Maybe they did, but they are. I go past their parking lots, their employee parking lots, when I drive over to my daughter's house. They live on the north side of Disney, and we live on the south side of Disney. So we go right through the Disney, right through on the road that goes right through the park. And
right.
When a couple of weeks ago, like there wasn't one car. I mean, you could count maybe 3 cars going the 18 miles. But now I see they must be training their staff, for the new rules that everybody's going to have to take under consideration. So yeah, the people that work there are back in those parking lots, because they're going through that new training phase now. But when I go past I-4, it's actually moving, which most of the time it's like a parking lot, like the BQE. It's like almost at a standstill every day. Right. Friday night being the worst, but it has not gotten back to that point. Maybe it never will with the people working from home. Both my daughters are working from home. In fact, Megan has RN job, which is a permanent work from home job.
Really?
She works for CVS, advising patients on their medications. That's her job, and she
never has to interact and
just on the phone and computer and the phone. That's all she does in her bedroom. with the door closed. She got a desk and a chair, a nice comfortable chair and a computer, you know. And Mary Kate's been working from home ever since. Pretty soon she's going to be working out at the airport, but that may be a month away yet. You know, she works for a construction company.
Right.
So, but she's still working from home also, both of them. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
None of us had envisioned when we moved to our respective states that we'd be curtailed recreationally. Because you have to say that Florida and California are all about tourism, all about having fun, this, that, and the other thing. Who would have guessed that there would be such incompetence that made for this? Because Trump could have stopped this in February. He was just concerned about the stock market and not calling attention to it so he could be reelected. That was the only thing on his mind. And they still play back those little things. Oh, there are 15 people. Within a week, it'll be gone. And like a miracle, it'll be turned around. And we did a tremendous job. Yeah. And now the next thing you're going to hear down the line is that 1 million people could have been killed if it wasn't for our hero Trump. Only 300,000 were killed, but it could have been 1 million. He will make that a selling point in his campaign.
Yeah, we also remember back when he was saying, "Oh, it shouldn't get any more than 60,000." Yes, that's a terrible number, but 60,000 probably even come in less than that. Okay, and now we've gone, more than twice that. Yep.
And in another 2 weeks, you're going to add another 20, 30,000 just because of 4th of July, and because of those silly-ass rallies and celebrations, indoors and outdoors, whatever it was, in South Dakota. It's crazy. Let's have a little fun politically, okay? It was he was almost a drum. I beat him so badly in discussions about when he ran against Obama. Romney. Let's assume for a second. Now, I know your answer because you're a moderate Democrat. You're a moderate Democrat or a Republican. You'd vote for Romney if he ran against Biden. If Trump died and they had to come up with somebody, pray God, and they came up with Romney, who would you vote for against Biden? Romney or Biden? You're a Democrat, but do you see much of a difference? Now, Romney has really surprised me. He's become liberalized in so many ways, and he gets no credit for Obamacare being his.
But that's why he'd never get that far with the Republicans. I think he's been branded as a traitor at this point, you know? So
I know that.
He'd never be running against Biden.
This is all a joke, kind of. This is a what if. Who would you vote for? I'm a Democrat. I'd vote for him over Biden.
I don't know.
You see my point,
tough.
though?
Yeah, I do.
They're pretty close, and as far as competency,
I like the guy personally. I mean, I do. But just the way the Republicans are in general right now, I think they just. Every Republican has to be defeated at this point, and I'd vote for Biden in that situation. I would.
Okay. Now, then, finally, let me bring up an article that you posted on Facebook that really intrigued me about Mitch McConnell, that we may be looking at a softening of the rest of the enablers, the Republican Party, who may be looking at the handwriting on the wall that whatever Trump is doing, he's losing in the polls badly. Tell me about the article. Tell me about the article, Robert. And you called attention to his passing a bill, and Marty pointed out that the bill had already been passed in Congress.
In the House.
And in the House. He's been stonewalling it all this time. What is the specific bill, Robert?
Well, it's basically a redoing of, the initial
stimulus
package.
Yeah.
Be another, $1,200 per person, a little bit more for, businesses, that sort of thing. Basically a rehashing of the original stimulus bill. But the important thing is now that more and more, as you said, Ralph, the Republicans that are going to be up for re-election, are starting to say, wait a second, we got to try to figure this out. If he's going down in flames, we don't want to go down with him. And they're starting to soften and move more towards the middle than, buy into his rhetoric.
I thought they originally said that when the bill passed in the House, the Republicans in the Senate was dead on arrival because it was too rich or too expensive, and they didn't have the money. So at that point, I thought, well, look, like you said, these guys are looking to get reelected. What's going to happen is they're going to cut it down somewhat, so it's not as expensive as it was when it came over from the House, and then they're going to pass it. But they've done nothing. Nothing was done. I haven't heard a damn thing about it, until today maybe. So maybe they're softening on that, but they better do something before they go on vacation in August. That's coming up.
Yeah. So it should be interesting. I'm still hearing rumblings that Trump's going to wind up walking away, going to resign. I'm still hearing rumblings about that.
But isn't he open to prosecution in New York at that point?
Once again, you really don't know what's going to happen there. I mean, if he loses the election, he's in the same condition. Maybe he's going to work out a deal, that we'll never hear about, where I'll walk away from the presidency, half Pence will take it over, and you don't bring charges against me. Who knows? I mean, he's done this his entire life. Never admit that he's wrong, never apologize, and never see anything through. Everybody, people say, oh, well, he's not a loser. He's never lost anything. He's lost a lot of things. He's walked away from numbers of businesses, and let them go bankrupt.
Oh. And without paying contractors. That's
correct. Right.
That's the worst thing he does.
Yeah. I mean, so
leaving stockholders holding the bag. Yes.
Right. Exactly. So, you go back to the football league that he had.
USFL. I was just thinking about that. Exactly.
Which was doing well, but he wanted to try to make a big payday. They won the lawsuit, and he won $1. So he took that down in flames. He's so many of his businesses have gone down in flames. And he
was
just walked
Steve
away.
Young involved in that? The quarterback with the 49ers later on. Didn't he?
He was in the USFL, yes.
Okay, was he involved with Trump at all, or that team?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. I know he was on one of the teams. But I don't believe he had any sort of business relationship.
In answer to that, will he just walk away? I think he'll have to be defeated and dragged out of the office.
Oh yeah.
I don't think his pride will let him just walk away.
No, he'll never do that.
Yeah.
He's in it till the end.
And
what can I tell you? One thing about McConnell, Ralph, he might be softening a little because he's got some real competition this year from a woman Democrat in his own state there that's getting pretty popular.
Kentucky, yes.
Oh, she's done a phenomenal fundraising job.
Yeah.
Okay, she's outdrawn McConnell as far as money goes.
Yeah, so, I mean, that could be one of the reasons he's softening on this stimulus thing.
Yeah. She's also a Marine fighter pilot and a major. Has a lot of good stuff going for her.
Absolutely, yeah. Dynamite.
All right, guys, you've brought me up to date on how life is in the new America.
Okay, our suggestion, Ralph, is put locks on the fences and the gates. Don't let anybody in. Don't let yourself out. Stay locked in, and we'll see you the next time.
Absolutely.
Right.
Just both of you stay healthy and try to stay out of harm's way.
Yep.
And love to your families.
Thanks,
the one thing I wanted to say and never got it in, all three of us have kids, and it's our kids that are really suffering. Socially, it's a big dent in youth, not being able to come and go as you please, not being able to make eye contact and chat with people on the street. I mean, in my mask, and I'm walking down, and you don't want to make eye contact, certainly with people who aren't wearing a mask. But it's just not the same. It's not the world we grew up in, and I don't know if it can be saved. And there are times it's very, very depressing, got to tell you.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Putting a light side on it helps, and this is cathartic. I hope it is for you guys as well.
Yeah. Finding a lot of new channels on TV that you got to pay for, but,
Yeah. Well, I've got two channels. I've got CNN and Law and Order and Chicago PD. I'd like to see Chicago PD take the most innocent of suspects and beat their heads against the prison gates for about 20 minutes and then walk them out and say, now we're going to book you.
Just don't defund the police, whatever you do.
Yeah.
Have you seen Trump's latest ad on that? About defunding the police?
No.
You haven't seen it?
Oh yeah.
It's actually
they may not be showing it out by.
It's actually
Ralph.
pretty funny. I got to hand it to him. This is a good one, Ralph. It's like the 911 is getting a phone call. And It's ringing, and it's ringing, and it's ringing. Nobody's answering, And it finally says, "You've reached the 911. We're sorry. Due to police defunding, nobody can answer your call right now. If you're reporting house break-in, press 1. Murder, press 2. Rape, press 3. And like that. And then he goes, and someone will eventually answer your phone call. Waiting time is approximately 5 days." That's just, it was good, but it's not funny, but I mean.
Well, just saying that they're defunding the police. They're not going to defund the police. They're going to reappropriate money.
Yeah, I mean.
They'll have mental health people to go out, and if you got some guy going crazy in the backyard, he doesn't need to be shot. He needs to be talked to. So they're going to call out someone without a gun and with more than a high school education.
It's just
good. Keeping the guns away from the police are a good thing. We want them to do the things. We want them to catch the rapists and the robbers and the real criminals.
Yeah, absolutely.
No question about that. But we don't want them dealing with the public any more than they have to, because it isn't working.
No.
Just the way it is. Not because right or wrong. If you can start from the fact, not debate whether or not what's working. Just say overall it's not working. Let's rebuild it. It doesn't have to be controversial. Robert, you're a policeman. There are things about the police department that don't work, that need major overhaul. Yes or no?
Absolutely. Okay. The
Okay.
whole problem,
now that doesn't mean you have to throw away all the policemen.
No.
But
that's
you
absurd.
do have
You can't do that.
Right. You do have to make changes. So to make light of it, it is funny and it is cute, but it gives you an idea of Trump's head. He's so basically banal and stupid that it is amazing with the millions of people on both sides, millions of Democrats, millions of Republicans. We are stuck with, and I'm not taking anything away from Biden, he's a horrible candidate. I didn't want to. So I include him in the.
Yeah, he's just downplaying the protesters. That's all. Anarchy, whatever he called them.
Right. We need two different candidates. We should have come up with two different candidates. And in the long run, the political system that has lobbyists determining, and when I think of lobbyists, I think of the pharmaceutical lobbyists who have Biden in their pocket. So how are things going to change other than getting Trump out of there for a Democrat? He doesn't care about fair working wages, and he doesn't care about fair health care. And that's all the working person today cares about most. Yeah. So we're electing a guy because we're going to elect Biden, no question about that. We got to get Trump out of there. But it will become another lesser of two evils. Much lesser, but lesser nonetheless. And 8 years of that kind of centrist mentality is going to make the whole world Republicans, because you call it what you want.
Look, anybody that gets that far in politics has got to be dirty someplace. Has to be.
Right.
Just even by taking money from whatever legal companies they do. They're all millionaires and billionaires by the time they're done with government, which they weren't when they started. So
right. Now,
figure that one out.
Whatever happens with the health care thing, Biden is still supporting big business. That's my only point. So the best we can hope for is just simply Trump getting out of there. And I want him to stay long enough to be punished. One of you mentioned that he may make a deal and get out of it and stuff. I'd like to be fruition, where he doesn't just, because Nixon was pardoned, and I think our problems today are a result of that. Presidents since have thought, well, he got away with that, I can get away with that, with even more, and it's gotten worse, not better. And I think Nixon's pardoning set the tone. And I can go back and say that the country needed to come together and be healed, and I could almost understand Ford's rationale, but the way it turned out, we haven't had a good president since. That's my political rant. What more can I tell you? Thank you, guys. Great show. We'll get to a lot more sports when need be.
Yeah, when they actually start playing, that would be
right.
Nice.
One thing, you guys referred to a game with St. John's on Facebook when what was that game?
Big East tournament. I think it was the opening game, wasn't it, Robert? The opening game.
No, it was the second game.
Oh, okay.
St. John's had won their first game, and this was the next round.
Oh, okay. They were playing the next day, and they played
and they were shut down at halftime.
Yeah, they played one half, and then the rest of the season was canceled. Yeah, because other conferences had already done it. That's why the Big East had to do it.
Yeah,
even right in the middle of the game.
What happened was you had those two pro players come down with the virus, and that pretty much shut everything down. Okay, the NBA said they were shutting down, and all of a sudden everybody shut down. I think the only other thing that went on, I think there was one other spring exhibition game being played in Arizona that may have gotten finished that day. But other than that, everything just, boom, shut right down.
Mm.
Yeah. Very interesting. Can't wait till we get it back. Not soon enough.
Well, we'll see.
All right.
Next time,
Thank you, Robert Cole. Thank you, Marty Rose. I'm Ralph Tyko, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. And we'll be back at you when we do. See you soon. Thank you for listening.
Stay safe.
Good night.
Night.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.